this first question you sent me from Discovery Ed number 4, which statements are true about the solutions of the quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0? It's going to be using the discriminant, which there is a whole video about the discriminant on PowerSchool, and I'll attach it to the email I'm about to send you. But the discriminant in math is b squared minus 4ac, and it's what's underneath the square root in the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So the discriminant is what is underneath the what's underneath the square root. So it tells you about your solutions. If what's underneath your square root is equal to 0, then you would be adding 0 and you would be subtracting 0, which gives you the same answer. So you get one solution, you get one answer. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, that means it's a negative number. If you get a negative number under here, you'd have to pop out an I, which means you get two imaginary, or sometimes they call those complex solutions. All right. If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, that means it's positive, and it's a perfect square. So 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49. If you get a perfect square, then you can take the square root of it, and it becomes a rational number. So just an integer, right? A whole number. So if it's a perfect square, you're going to get two real rational answers. If it is greater than 0 but not a perfect square, then you're going to get two real irrational answers. For instance, you'll have 3 plus or minus 2 square root 5. Well, if you have a square root 5 left in your answer, that's an irrational solution. All right? Okay, so this question from Discovery Ed is definitely one of higher difficulty. This is not going to be on a test that I give you, but I'm still more than happy to explain it. Whenever they're talking about the solutions, once again, you're going to be using the discriminant to help you, or the whole entire quadratic formula. Negative b over 2a tells you about your axis of symmetry. It doesn't tell you anything about your solutions. So A and D are not going to be helpful when it's asking about the solutions. Okay? Alright, if you read b squared equals 4ac, then there's one unique solution. Well, let's go back and look at the scenario where we said there would be one solution. That's when b squared minus 4ac equals 0. Well, if b squared minus 4ac equals 0, that means that b squared equals 4ac just by manipulating the equation. So this one is true. If c is equal to 0, then x equals 0 is a solution. All right, well, let's just try that. So if c is equal to 0, that means I have this, which means that I don't need to write the c value at all. I can factor out an x, so I'm left with ax plus b. And then if you set both parts equal to 0, you will always get x equals 0 as one of your answers. So that one is also true. And then lastly, if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, there are no real solutions. We already talked about that down here. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, that means that it was negative underneath the square root. So you have two imaginary solutions, not real solutions. All right, and then you also had a question about 13. Select the graph of y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where b is greater than 0 and b squared equals 4c. So if b is greater than 0, that is going to be a horizontal shift. And the bigger it gets, it actually moves to the left, because when you do complete the square and all that, it just goes to the left. Here your a value is 1, so this is the same thing as b squared equals 4ac, because a is 1, so 4 times 1 is just 4. So we know that means there's one solution, because you could rewrite this again, b squared minus 4ac equals 0. So there's only one solution. So it's not this graph, and it's not this graph. It's got to be one of these that has one solution. And like I said, the bigger b gets, it moves it to the left. So that is that one. Again, that's a lot of critical thinking. The easiest way would just be to plug in values. So you know b has to be greater than 0. You also know that b squared has to equal 4c. So let's say that I do b is 4. If I let b be 4, I'm just picking a number because 4 is a perfect square. So if b is 4, and actually it wouldn't matter that 4 is a perfect square and that it's even. So I picked b as 4. I'm just seeing if I can make this work. So plug that in, and so you get 16 equals 4c divided by 4. So c would have to be 4 in this scenario. So that means I have the equation. I'm going to go back and plug them in. X squared plus 4x plus 4. And if you graph that in Desmos, it does look like that. And they didn't give you a number here because you could pick different values as long as it satisfies the constraints. And then lastly, you asked about number 6, which I actually explained that whole problem in the quadratic formula video, which I'll also send in the email.